Hello, everybody. Greetings to all. Welcome to the Snooker Hall podcast. I'm Dan Murren. It is the middle of July, the height of summer, and the first ranking tournament of the 26-27 season is already in the books. Congratulations to Jack Jones on winning his first ranking event. However, there are several more ranking events to come this season. 17 more, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lot of intrigue around this upcoming campaign. To help look ahead, I'll need some help. And when you need help, this is the fella to ask. My guest is the chief writer for Totally Snookered, one of the most informative and prolific snooker news outlets out there. And he has just started a new role within snooker, providing play-by-play commentary for WST Play. I'm always delighted to welcome Michael Day to the Snooker Hall podcast. Michael, how are you?
Thank you, Dan, for that lovely introduction. Yeah, brilliant. Always fantastic coming on the pod. Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Yeah, it's like you say, first ranking events in the books, and we've got plenty more to come. Starting with we've got the Shanghai Masters. Obviously, that's invitation in a few weeks' time, and then we're on the road. Then it's pretty much non-stop for the next few months.
Yeah, I noticed that the British Open has been moved a little bit earlier in the calendar. I know it was always back-to-back with the English Open, but this time the English Open is after. I don't know if that makes any difference at all, really. But I thought it was worth noting.
I noticed that. Yeah, it's slightly. It's the main venue stages. Obviously, there's qualifiers in a couple of days' time, but the actual event in Cheltenham itself is at the end of August. It goes into September. So yeah, it's a little bit earlier this year. And as you say, it goes back to back with the English Open. So those events are kind of tied together, aren't they, over the last couple of seasons?
Yeah. And one of my buddies, he's a casual fan, but he was like, "Well, you have the British Open and the English Open, and they're back to back." I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Is that not a bit confusing?" I said, "Well, not really, but." And I tried to use the open draw to no, they're completely different tournaments because the draw is different. And I suppose I do like the British Open in that sense. I do like the unpredictable nature of the draw. I don't know, it can throw up a blockbuster clash early. I know you might get a surprise finalist. I think we haven't had a surprise finalist recently, but it's maybe, I don't know about the mathematics, but it might be more likely. I guess it would be.
Yeah, I remember back many years ago, even before I started watching, people often talk about when Bob Chaperon, the Canadian player, I think he won the 90 or 91 British Open, and he got to the final. And he was a real sort of surprise finalist. And he actually played Alex Higgins in the final and beat Higgins. I think that was Higgins' last ranking event final. So we've had surprise winners in the past. And I mean, last year, I'm not sure you can really call him a surprise finalist, but we had Anthony McGill. He got to the final, obviously, against Murphy.
Of course, yeah.
It's been a few years since he'd been to the final of a tournament. So I can't really remember who I remember he beat John Higgins in the semi-final, so it's not exactly he's had an easy draw to the final. But I guess I guess it is possible that a lower ranked player or a mid ranked player could come through it, an opportunity. I think this year I've not had a proper look at the draw, but I was listening to Dave Hendon's podcast, and he said that the top 16, who obviously have all their first round games held over to the main venue, none of them have drawn each other, which is quite surprising. So usually, I know in the past we've had a couple of sort of top 16 clashes in the opening round. So that's interesting. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect the draw going onwards. But yeah, I like it. I mean, I quite like different formats for tournaments. You're not sort of disrupting the actual game of snooker. I think I like it. I like having the random draw.
And I thought they might try and expand that with the Home Nations events, actually. But I suppose it does kind of make the British Open a bit more. It's like the USP, I guess.
Yeah.
So I do like that.
It's interesting though, because I mean, me growing up snooker. I mean, I'm here in Plymouth in Devon, and we used to hold the British Open from like '94 to I think 2000. And back then it was a normal draw because Sky Sports were covering it. They took over the event when the ITV contract ended. So it was sort of like a normal ranking event, as it were, with normal format. So I've got great memories of the British Open. Nigel Bond winning in '96, beating Higgins on the final black. Fergal O'Brien winning his ranking event against Anthony Hamilton. I remember Jimmy White got to the final one year, and me as a Jimmy fan, that was unbelievable watching him go through the draw. He lost to Ebden in the final. Hendry made a 147 in the final down there. So I've got great memories of the British Open when it was here in Plymouth. Unfortunately, it left, and we've never had a ranking tournament since. But yeah, I've got sort of great history, personal history with the British Open.
And I suppose I'll take 2 points there and try and put them together to form a question for you. So you said that the top 16 will have their matches held over to the Cheltenham Arena.
Yeah.
And that would imply that there will be qualifiers, so to speak. Will you be doing any commentary work on that?
I will be, yes. Yeah, so we've got a triple header of qualifying action on WST Play. It starts on Sunday with the Shenzhen Open, and then we've also got qualifiers for the British Open and English Open. So the first round matches not involving the top 16. All those players have to go to the Mattioli Arena, Leicester, over the next couple of days to qualify for the main venue. And obviously Shenzhen Open, that's a tiered draw system, so we've got a couple of rounds of action for that. And the same with the English Open as well. So slightly different formats for all three of the events, but yeah, the lower ranked and mid-ranked players will have to go to Leicester to get through to the main draw or televised stage. So I know that's a bit of a controversial topic among some snooker fans. They're already in the draw, but to get through to the main draw and the televised stages.
Yeah, no, it is a debate. Has the tournament begun? But I suppose the label is kind of arbitrary, really. It's just, I think it's done mostly for logistics.
I'm not too bothered about what it's labelled or anything. I mean, in all other sports, you have qualifying rounds. I guess that's kind of an extension of the main tournament. Or I don't know. I'm not semantics and other things as well. I'm not too bothered about it. I don't get too wrapped up with it all.
There are more important things in life.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. But this so commentary, it's fairly new for you, but that just started at the beginning of, fairly recently, right?
Yeah, well, with WST, yeah. I mean, many years ago, I used to do sort of a bit of commentary elsewhere for like pool events, sort of money matches, pool tournaments. So I did that probably started that about 10 years ago. And then done a little bit of snooker commentary for the WPBSA on like women's events and disability events sort of online on their YouTube channels and social media and stuff. So it's not something I was expecting. I got a message from World Snooker Tour several weeks ago asking if it would be something I'd be interested in doing. They explained what the role would entail, etc. And it's changed this year because I think like the contract with like Discovery Plus or what people used to know as Eurosport, now TNT Sports, they used to have all the rights for the qualifying rounds of all the events, which would be on the DMAX platform and other things like that. But that's slightly changed this year. So now World Snooker Tour are sort of hosting the qualifiers themselves on WST Play, although there are other platforms the qualifiers are available on. So WST Play, to their great credit, they're trying to make it as good as it can, as best value for money as they can. So they've got commentary, they've got myself, Dave Hendon and Michael McMullen doing the commentary, and we do the matches solo. But yeah, it's worked out really well. We had our first batch of qualifiers a few weeks ago for the China Open and the Wuhan Open, and yeah, it seemed to work really well. And hopefully it'll just pick up throughout the season. We'll get more and more subscribers, and yeah, hopefully it'll be a really good thing for fans to tune into.
Now, I've got to say, between the three of you, Dave Hendon, Michael McMullen and you, that's a fair bit of snooker knowledge and a fair bit of snooker passion as well, because I agree the commentator should be heard and the commentator should explain what's going on. It should be people who understand the sport explaining it.
Yeah, and it's when it comes to commentary in any sport, it's subjective. I mean, I've got my favourite commentators for various sports, your darts, footballs, crickets, whatever. but everyone's doing a great job. Doing to the best of their ability. It's just at the end of the day, some people prefer the way people commentate in different styles. Perhaps it's a bit more informative. Perhaps it's a bit more statistical, etc. So, but I can't complain. It's fantastic to sit down and talk about something I love. Do you know what I mean? But I know some people
Yeah.
don't like commentary at all. They like just hear the click of the balls and listen to it in silence, and that's fine as well. Whatever your bag is, that's fine. But yeah, it's interesting, and also solo commentary is slightly different to, like I say, when I was doing commentary before, I'd usually have somebody with me and we'd bounce off each other, etc. So solo commentary is slightly different, and does take a real getting used to. And the China Open we just had, they were best of 11 matches, so some of the games went on 3 or 4 hours long. So there were spells where it was a little bit a bit scrappy, not much to talk about. So you have to try and not talk too much, but fill the gaps as well. So you might talk about the other tables, what the results, scores going on elsewhere, a little bit about the players themselves. So yeah, it's very interesting to do.
And I just think when I hear people on commentary, and you can tell there's a bit of passion, but as you said, scrappy frames. It's hard to watch it in the arena. It's hard to watch it at home. But when you're commentating, you can't just go for a cup of tea or something like that. You actually have to stay there and watch it. And I've said it so many times on this podcast. One of my favourite lines of commentary in recent years was from Joe Perry. And it was Zhang Anda versus Pang Junzhu at the Crucible. This is tough going. And I just thought it's so honest. But sitting in the arena listening or watching it, oh my God, it was painful. But I had the option to just sneak out if I wanted to, go and get a pint or something. But
it's important as well. You don't want to alienate the fans, because if you're a snooker fan and you're watching a scrappy match, you'll know actually this isn't very good. This is quite scrappy. But that happens in snooker. That's part of the charm. Who knows? Someone might part a fantastic ball and then make an excellent clearance. So anything can happen, and it's rough with smooth. And I often think of Steve Davis. Many years ago, he said something about snooker's an easy sport for like the media to rip into and poke a stick at, etc. But the fans know if you stick with a game, at the end of the game you can be richly rewarded. I mean, take for example like Alan v Wu at the World Championship. We had the longest frame in Crucible history, which we could talk about that for an hour, couldn't we? About how that went.
Oh my God!
But, in the end, the frame actually become compelling viewing, didn't it? I mean, everything about it towards the end was remarkable, and it just turned 360. It was brilliant. It sounds weird saying it's a brilliant, but it went on for too long. Let's be the situation. But I do feel for Marcel Eckert in that situation. It was a difficult situation for him to sort of officiate, but come the end of it, it was fascinating. Then Alan got the snooker. And Wu got out of it, and Wu couldn't finish the frame off, and there was so much drama attached to that frame. It was so bad, it was good.
And Dave Hendon, you mentioned him earlier. He was spot on when he made a comment about that frame. He said, "Okay, it got people talking, and some people were outraged that it took so long. Oh, it's killing the sport." And I think Steve Davis was one of those. Actually, he said that
he said an embarrassment, didn't he?
I think that might have been his word actually. Yeah. So he was scathing. But Dave Hendon, who I always thought quite a rational thinker, in a few days people won't be talking about that, and he was absolutely right. That Miss Black takes all the spotlight away from that extended frame because it's a bigger moment. Okay, it's an anomaly. It was kind of weird to see. This might be a little bit too much information, but I wasn't in the arena for that one. I was in my hotel in Sheffield, in the shower. And I kind of stopped my shower halfway through just to go and watch it. It's it's not the kind of thing you see every day, so you want to see what's going to happen. But for the commentator, it's kind of tough because you're seeing the same thing over and over and over again for 40 odd minutes. What do you do? You won't know until you're in that position, though, will you?
Yeah, I think I was watching that on BBC, and I think it was Stephen Hendry and John Parrott and I think they were in the commentary box for it, and you could hear Stephen Hendry. Stephen Hendry was not impressed, and there were spells of a minute, 2 minutes where nothing was said, and I could just imagine Hendry and John in the commentary box sort of turning away. I found that quite sorry, Stephen, but I found that quite sort of amusing, and Hendry was just getting more and more frustrated as the frame went on. So yeah, that was. But yeah, like you say, that match, Alan and Wu, that's one of the most memorable matches in World Championship history, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest.
Absolutely,
so many things happened. So many things happened in that match. I mean, in the opening session, there was a power cut. Do you remember that in the opening session? There was
my God, yeah.
TV went down, and then in the deciding frame, you had someone from the crowd shouting out.
About the Epstein files?
Yes, so there was a disturbance there. We've had the longest frame ever in Crucible history. We've had Alan miss a Blachowicz spot to get to the final. We had Alan making century breaks. We had players running this, sessions ending early. It was an incredible game. It really was. Fantastic. I think.
No, it's it absolutely is one for the annals because, as I said, sometimes you do get dud matches. The Crucible will always, even a poor match, will be elevated slightly by the fact that it's at the Crucible, and clearly to play at the Crucible, you've got to have two good players.
Yeah.
But it kind of had everything, and the fact that it went the distance as well, it just.
I think you make
it's
a really
just drama.
I think you make a really good point, Dan, because I mean, the World Championship we just had, I think that's one of the greatest World Championships of all time, and that's not just recent.
Agreed. Yeah.
However, the first round was a little bit of a dud. I think there was only one deciding frame finish. That was Murphy. There was quite a lot of one-sided games. I actually think the opening round, I think Zhao versus Jack Lazowski, I was in the arena for that. That was turning out to be a really good game before Zhao managed to get away. But from the second round onwards, we had loads of close matches, didn't we? Had lots of drama. So with long format matches, yeah, you can get one-sided games and they sort of fizzle out and you know who's going to win. But on the flip side, the drama towards the end of a multi-session match is so different to, say, like a best of 7 or a best of 9.
And I remember after the final session, Wu Yize has been given his trophy and he's made a speech. I walk out of the arena and Nick Metcalf is standing there and he's finishing an episode of Radio Snooker. And he won't mind me saying this, but I kind of felt I was rude to him and I didn't mean to be, but it's just the roller coaster of emotions over the last 2 days. Like, I love snooker. But being in there, watching that final from start to finish, watching that story unfold, I could barely take it, and I'm not even playing. And I later on, I was, Nick, I'm sorry, please don't think I was intentionally being rude. My brain was all over the place. I didn't know what to do. He said, no need to apologise. But if I can come out of the arena feeling that way, I know I've had an emotional time, and that's good. That's why we watch sport. It's for emotion, it's passion, it's the tragedy and the joy, and which one we're going to get. And I absolutely agree. It's one of the best World Championships I've ever seen. And, 15 of the 16 first-round matches were won by the seed. Only, was it Hussein Fafai was the only qualifier to get through? And he had a good run himself, actually. But I don't think that takes away from the quality. I thought some of the matches were excellent.
Yeah.
It was really good. Like, even Zhao Guodong, he's such a good player. And Sean Murphy, let's be honest, wiped the floor with him.
Yeah.
And I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a brilliant tournament, a fantastic tournament. So many talking points, and obviously the second round game between Ronnie and Higgins, Higgins' comeback, and the opportunities in the last frame. As you say, Wu Yize defeating Mark Selby in the last 16. I'm not sure many people would have had Wu beaten Selby over 3 sessions, but he did. And I mean, I was thinking about this earlier in preparation for this. I was thinking Selby's only won 1 game at the Crucible in the last 3 years. Now,
yeah,
wow,
he's finished. He was a flash in the pan. He was a fluke all along.
Wouldn't surprise me if Selby come back and won it this season. But I mean, when you consider he made 5 world finals from 10, and then he's had this run since the 23 final where he's lost first round, lost second round. It's crazy, but I mean, perhaps perhaps the Crucible code has changed. I've talked about this myself on my on vodcast with Neil Folds. Has the code changed for the Crucible? Because we've had 4 new winners in the last 4 years. All of them have been sort of early 30s or lower. I mean, Kyron was the oldest. Luca was in his 20s when he won it. Zhao was in his 20s when he won it. And Wu's only 22. So has the code changed? And Wu had never won a match at the Crucible before. Luca had never won a match at the Crucible before. Zhao had only won 1 match at the Crucible before. So people talk about experience and this and that. It doesn't look as if these players care about that. If they go on a run, they're going to go and win the tournament. So maybe the World Championship has changed. And, the stats are sort of backing that up over the last couple of years.
I remember before the previous year's World Championship, I made a prediction that we would see a changing of the guard. And I've got to say, I was completely wrong, because if I'm not mistaken, the semi-finalists were Mark Williams. Ronnie O'Sullivan was in the semis, wasn't he? Yeah. And who was Mark Williams up against? Judd Trump?
Yeah, Williams, Trump.
Not a rookie.
Yeah.
But this time, well, even then, we got a new winner. Okay, he was clearly one of the best players. Far too good for the Q Tour, as many of the Q Tour players said that year. But he absolutely earned it the hard way. There was no... Was it 100, if you include the qualifying, I think it was 120-something frames he had to win, or something like that. And when you look at... So that's a hard run to the final. And when you look at Wu's run to the final, let's say he beat Mark Selby, he beat Mark Allen, he beat Sean Murphy. Who else did he get through?
Hossein Vafai in the quarters. And
Yes, of course, yeah.
He defeated Lei Pei Fan, I think, in the opening round. I think 10-2 or something. I was expecting that game to be a lot closer, because obviously he's a ranking event winner himself. But incredible run, and delighted for him to win the tournament. I mean, I would have been delighted whoever won it. If Sean had won it, I'd have been delighted for him. What a story that would have been, 21 years after his first world title to win another one. So regardless of what happened, it was going to be, well deserved. And the way Wu won in the deciding frame is, the opening red, the way he slotted that into the middle pocket, and to get the championship won in one visit, that's class, isn't it? That
was guts.
That's class. I mean, you can't really call it anything else. Where under the most extreme pressure. And as a snooker player, there can't be any more pressure than playing in the deciding frame of World Championship final, and your first World Championship final. So it's not like you've got any experience to draw on. That's incredible from Wu. What a cool customer he is.
That's a good point. Talent is one thing, but the ability to use that talent is what really separates the champions from the also-rans, if I'm not being disrespectful by saying that. But the composure he showed for, still relatively inexperienced compared to most of the tour.
Yeah, and I was sorry to butt in, but I was a little bit not worried, but looking at. I wonder what his bottle is like, because at the Masters this year, he missed a great opportunity to get to the final. He missed, in the balls against Wilson in the semi-finals. He was in the balls plumbing, and he's missed at close range. I thought, hopefully he learns from that. And in the semi-finals against Allen, let's not forget, before Allen's missed black, he's also he missed the pink to win the frame. He I don't want to use the word twitch, but he's missed a golden opportunity to win that frame beforehand. So there were a couple of times I thought, well, I wonder, how he's going to stand up to the scrutiny of a world final. But goodness me, the last few frames he potted some unbelievable pressure balls, and that's just going to make him feel. A million feet tall for the new season. The way he's won that World Championship title, he's going to be full of confidence.
A friend of mine said to me, and I kind of saw the logic. I don't agree with the logic. Actually, you mentioned Neil Folds. I mentioned it to him on the final episode of the last season. I see what the point is when I explain an idea someone told me. I don't know if I agree with it, but I understand why they think that. And they compared Wu and his long putting, which is just unbelievable. Like, nothing is safe on that table, basically. But a friend of mine compared it to the golfers who spend a little bit more time in the gym, beefing up. Bryson DeChambeau, I think, would be Brooks Koepka, golfers like that, where they can just blast that golf ball down the fairway so much further, and it just makes the approach game so much easier. And it's not, I suppose it's that anti-golf. It's within the rules. Like, I've always thought that Novak Djokovic is kind of anti-tennis in the way he plays. You hear anti-football all the time. And a friend of mine said that Wu Yize is anti-snooker. And because without the long pot, he wouldn't have the chances. But I thought, but that's how most opportunities come in the games. Like,
Yeah.
individual frames. Neil Robertson, Sean Murphy, players like this, like, if their long putting wasn't so good, they wouldn't be the player they are. And I get where he's coming from, but I don't know if I agree with it. Is it anti-snooker? I don't think it is.
I mean, each their own, but I don't agree with that. I mean, like you say, that the way you get in is predominantly now from the long potting, and Wu. Again, I know there's recency bias, but he already won a ranking event. He won the international championship a few months before, and he'd already been knocking on the door. He'd been to a few finals. But Wu, at the minute, is the best single ball potter in the game. Let's be honest, there's no question about that. I mean,
No, I'd agree.
The highlight reel, some of the balls, I mean, a joke, honestly. And then that gets him in. That gets him in. And maybe, perhaps, if there is a slight weakness or something he needs to perhaps define, is maybe his cue ball. A few times, even in the last frame, his cue ball wasn't exactly perfect, but he's such a good potter. He can get out of that, and whereas someone like a Ding Junhui, maybe not a current Ding Junhui, but when Ding was in his pomp, he was the best. He had the best cue ball in the game, best positional. He would get the cue ball on a 5 pence piece. He could come off 3 or 4 cushions and excellent. Whereas Wu is slightly different, where he's just an explosive potter. And once he gets in, you don't fancy him missing. Even if he does get out of position, you just think he's just going to pot himself out of trouble. And if you're an opponent, that's just must be so disheartening. You think you've got an opportunity, he's run out of position, then he goes and pulls out a worldly. So yeah, fantastic player to watch. I mean, brilliant, absolutely fantastic.
And I suppose that's another aspect to the game. It's you're going to be playing a talented player. Of course you are at that level, but not everyone has that weapon in their arsenal. And say you use the word disheartening, demoralising, depressing, whatever word you want to use, it's just got to be so hard to and even sitting in the arena watching it, you just never got the impression that he was going to miss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's a confidence with the way he plays, and maybe that's part of the youth, the recklessness of the youth, or the overconfidence of youth, whatever it is. But he absolutely backed it up with composure, and I was going to use another word, but we'll say guts.
Yeah.
And I'm really pleased for him. I think is he the player to watch next season for you? Because we had Zhao Xintong. Maybe the first half of the season wasn't an elite defence of his World Championship, but the second half he was easily the player of the second half.
I think it's always fascinating to see how first-time world champions get on, and even in recent times we look at the differences between, say, Kyron Wilson and Luca Brissell. Luca Brissell, I know he's had maybe issues off the table, but he's not been to a ranking event final since the World Final. I think he's only been to one ranking event semi-final, the Welsh Open, I think last year. So, he's not had a great time since winning at the Crucible, whereas Kyron Wilson in his season, having won the World Championship, he went on to win, was it 3 or 4 ranking titles?
4 ranking titles and the final of the Masters.
He handled that pressure
he did
incredibly
all
well. And last season, as you say, Zhao, it did take him a little while to get going, but second half of the season he was deadly. He won all 3 events. The Players Series, he won the Gold Ball event in Riyadh as well. So he was the most successful player from last season in terms of the amount of trophies. But yeah, how is Wu going to do? I don't know. I think probably the same as what I predicted for Zhao last year. I said I can't see him dominating because there's so many good players at the top of the game. But I expect him to perhaps win a couple, at least a couple of tournaments. And build on what he created last season for himself. His debut ranking event title, the world title. So yeah, he's going to be one of the players to watch. Whether he'll be the top of the 1 year list, etc., we'll wait to see. But be interested to see how he handles it all.
Who else have you got your eye on? Whether that be you're excited to watch them, or maybe you're a little bit concerned. Who else is on your radar?
Oh, there's so many, isn't there? I mean, when you look at last season, the titles were spread about. We had so many unique winners over sort of like the first 12, 13 events. Everyone was a different winner. So there's so many players who could add more trophies this season. Who am I like? I mean, obviously Zhao Xingtong. At some point, you expect them to be world number one because Judd Trump's points are coming off. So I'm really excited to see how Zhao gets on in the biggest of events like the UK, the Masters, etc. How's Judd Trump going to do? Judd Trump. I think some of the criticism his way has been unjust because last year he still got to several finals last year. But he only won one of them. So for Judd Trump, that's a disappointment. But for any other player on circuit, say, wow, I've reached 3, 4, 5 finals this year. That's brilliant. So be interesting how Judd Trump gets on, whether he's overcome all his Q issues, etc., any sort of personal issues he's had as well. So I'm looking forward to see how he plays. Just so many players. I mean, another one people keep talking about is Chang Bing Yu. Obviously, he keeps getting talked up by people. He's the next big thing. He's young, he's exciting, he's a prospect, he's a hot property, all this. His early results this season have been very impressive. He's qualified for China Open, Wuhan Open. He looked really good in the Championship League, even though he didn't win that. He made lots of century breaks. So people are kind of expecting him to win a tournament, but then that adds, you're not a ranking event champion until you've done it. So that's going to add a lot of pressure on him. Just loads of players, Dan. Loads of players who I think, just who's going to sort of grasp it, who can go on a run like Zhao Xingtong did over this spring. Can they sort of put back-to-back tournament wins together? Can they string 7, 8, 9 wins on the circuit? It's just so difficult now because there's so many top players there who've won titles. You go back sort of like 20, 25 years, the top 16. You might have had, there may have been a quarter of half the top 16 who never won a ranking event title. You look at the top 16 now, the only player in it who hasn't run a title is Si Jiahui. But he's come close to it. And I think in the top 10, without looking online, I think the top 10, I think we've got like 8 world champions or 9 world champions, which is crazy. So, yeah, will there be a changing of the guard? I mean, we'll see. You would expect a couple of players maybe to break into the top 16. One of those could be like a Chang Bing Yu. But, it could be a very intriguing season ahead.
I made a short little list of players who I think will get a lot of attention from snooker fans and snooker media, and I added my own, well, not my own name, I added another name to the bottom of the list, and I do think he's spoken about a lot, and you just mentioned him there, Judd Trump. Like, clearly he's one of the best players in snooker, and people will always use this, he's only won 1 world title, but he's won 31 ranking events now.
Yeah.
And even on Dave Hendon's podcast, someone asked the question, basically, is he finished or should we be concerned? Or so, I forget the exact wording. And I really don't think we shouldn't be that concerned about him. He's doing all right. But are his days of winning multiple titles and the big titles over? And I suppose the evidence would suggest, probably not, really. Because he's still doing quite well in most tournaments. He won the UK Championship, that was 24, wasn't it? And he made the semis at the World Championship.
Yeah.
And he lost the close one.
The season before last, he won the Saudi Arabia Masters, unbelievable circumstances. He won the Shanghai Masters. He won the UK Championship. As you say, he got to the semis of the World Championship as well that season. And again, last season, he got to 5 finals. I can't remember. Northern Ireland, Champion of Champions. He won the German Masters. Tour Championship final. So he's putting himself in. If he was, say, getting knocked out in like the last 16 quarterfinals, then maybe you think, oh, what's up here. But he's getting himself into positions of winning tournaments. He's getting into the finals, isn't he? So for me, no, Judd Trump's not done at all. I expect. Again, though, it's expectation, but I expect Judd to win multiple tournaments this year. Whether or not he can, have another season where he wins sort of 5-6 events, that's a different question. But those seasons were exceptional. They were record breaking, so that's not the norm. Perhaps the norm is Judd Trump winning 2-3 titles a year, perhaps, maybe, but we'll see. But I think Judd will be back in the winners' enclosure this season for sure.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the phrase, but I will use it in this case. He's too good. Like, he's just an exceptional snooker player, and he's so smart on the table. Like, if someone beats him, right, fair enough, but he won't lose because he's made a stupid error. I think his concentration in general, I think is really good. The way he can focus, the way he can pull himself out of sometimes kind of sticky situations. That Saudi Arabia final being one of them. He's one ball away from losing. But not just the money on the line, but the fact that it's a big title. He had the bottle to stand up to that pressure. And I think even though he's losing those points this season, when you can do that against someone like Mark Williams, knowing that one mistake and it's over.
Yeah, I mean, last season, obviously, he got to UK final again. He was the defending.
Of course
champion,
he did, yes. Yeah.
And in the end, he only lost 10-8 to Selby. The Masters, he missed that brown in the semi-finals against Higgins to win 6-4. So he's only a ball or two away from making the final there. So he's getting himself in these great positions again. So, if he was getting dumped out first round, second round, then you'd be a bit worried maybe. But I'm not too concerned about his form.
Nah, he'll be fine. I think he'll still earn a lot of money for himself. He'll still go deep in many, many tournaments. I'm not really concerned for him at all. A couple of other names, Wu Yize you mentioned there. I think I could see him, challenging at the business end. I wouldn't, if he goes and wins the Masters, would it be a massive surprise? Honestly, no. Would he be my favourite for the World Championship? We'll have to see how the form goes. But a couple of other names I've put on here, I'd be interested in your opinion. Number one, I think, especially early in the season, he'll get a lot of attention. Mark Allen. Yeah. Because you may remember he missed quite an important black in one of the matches late in the season.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. Someone and he was good.
Yeah.
But I got to say, I was in the graduate, and Mark Allen was in there about half an hour later, and I guess he just wanted to get away. It's just like, I just want to go, don't want to think about this. But not only the financial implications of that miss, it's what he's working his whole career to do. And he said, if I don't become world champion, I'll consider my career a failure. But he was honest about it. I don't know if this was the exact word he used, but he choked.
Yeah.
And let it get to him.
Let's be honest, full credit to Mark, the way he handled himself after that final.
Absolutely,
must have been absolutely crushed and heartbroken. But the way he conducted himself, he congratulated Wu. He made no excuses. He said in the press conference afterwards that the right man won, and also as well, I mean, he could have flipped about the longest frame of the match, because obviously the press conference afterwards, no one's really had an opportunity to talk to him about that. Because obviously there was the consensus that he was slightly robbed because he was in front and he had to do this. I don't know about that, but he could have let his emotions get to him, and he could have gone off on one there. But he handled himself exemplary. It was absolutely fantastic. So full credit to Mark. And yeah, I'm with you. He's not entered the Shanghai Masters again this year. I'm not quite sure for the second year in a row he's not entered it. So he won't. He's got a couple more weeks off until he plays in the China Open, where he's one of the top seeds. But yeah, I mean, he can't get away from it. Unfortunately, that black is it's going to be one of those landmark blacks that people are going to be talking about, forever.
For years to come.
And
Yeah,
he can't. But in a way, he can kind of put that in a box because he can't get rid of that. That's in the history books. People are always going to talk about that. So now the only way he can remedy that is by winning the World Championship, is by winning more titles, is by getting back towards the top of the rankings, world number one, etc. So he's got to use that as sort of fuel for him going forward. And I think people will judge him, actually, how he gets on this season by that. Because if he doesn't win tournaments, people will be, he's not winning because he bottled the black, etc., etc. But if he starts winning things this season, people say, wow, he's bounced back really well from that miss. So yeah, I'm with you, Dan. It will be interesting to see how Mark gets on.
I think people are going to be a little bit sick of hearing these examples. But when you get crushing moments like that, and it's not quite as crushing as these two examples I'm going to give, and I bet there are some people listening to this, I know what he's going to say, and it's Andy Roddick versus Roger Federer in the 2009 Wimbledon final. Roddick's one set up, and he loses the second set tiebreak, and he absolutely should have won it. Just a couple of points that Federer snuck in, and match turns, and everyone on the analysis team afterwards, if he goes 2-up, Boris Becker, like one of the great Wimbledon champions, so if he goes 2-up, he wins. And he never won Wimbledon, and Andy Roddick after that match never made another quarter-final at a Grand Slam. It kind of broke him. And the other one is Felipe Massa. He came about as close as anyone can, to winning the World Championship in 2008. And it's honestly one of the most dominant single race victories in Formula One history when he won that race. But he lost out because of circumstances kind of beyond his control. And he never won another race after that. And I just hope that doesn't happen to Mark Allen, that this crushes him so much. But I think Mark Allen's a tough character.
Yeah, no,
he has guts. He's got a spine. He's got backbone. I think if anything, this might just drive him on even more.
Yeah.
I don't think it will have a long-term impact on him.
He's gritty. He's determined. And I completely agree with you. There's so many tournaments as well on the circuit that you can bounce back after a disappointment. It's slightly different with the World Championship because obviously it's the biggest in the sport and it's the last of the season, so you've got a few months to stew over it. But Mark can find a bit of momentum and get on a roll next season. I'm with you. I expect him to bounce back. But it's interesting because we've just talked about sort of 5 or 6 players here, and most of them I've said I expect them to win a title, but that's probably not going to happen, is it?
There's only so many titles to go around, yeah.
No one's got sort of a divine right to win titles, and there's only X amount of tournaments. So, yeah, I might be talking complete nonsense here because I'm saying, I expect him to win this, expect him to win that. But they're so good. They're tournament winners. And what it's that point is, what is a successful season? Would you rather just win one tournament, or would you have a consistent run of tournaments and pick up ranking points, etc.? But I guess in terms of Mark Allen, I don't expect it to have an adverse effect on his form, put it that way, because I think he can put that to the back of his mind and just get on with what's going on the table. And I just hope people just sort of, don't judge him on that one ball for this season, because it's not going to be as simple as that. If he doesn't win tournaments, I don't want people saying, it's because he missed the black, etc. So, it's not black and white, as it were. And that's not supposed to be a pun, by the way, on the black ball. It's.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be a pun, and
a very bad,
a very bad pun, even worse than my puns, actually. But you're going to be covering a lot of, pretty much all of the section on Totally Snookered, right?
Yes, yeah, obviously it's been slightly quieter over the summer. We've had the Championship League, and we've started uploading the vodcasts again with certain players. So we were thinking of Neil Foulds, Dave Hendon. We had a really interesting chat with Paul Norris, who is the oldest new professional. At the age of 58 or 59, he's becoming a professional player. And his journey, if I don't want to sort of sell my own my own, the YouTube channel on your podcast. But I mean, if you go over to Totally Snooker's YouTube channel, we had a fantastic chat with Paul. He's got a brilliant sort of background story. He's a classically trained actor. He moved to Australia to be with his girlfriend, and that's how he won the Asia Pacific Championship. He had no ambitions of winning that tournament. It was only because it was in his local club in Sydney, and he managed to beat Vinny Calabrese in the final. And then he's got this huge decision about, well, do I take the tour ticket? What do I do? So he's you've got to. He said himself he doesn't expect to stay on the circuit after 2 years, so he's going to just try and enjoy everything, have as much fun as he can. And he was telling me about his goals. He said, well, I want to win a frame, and then I want to win 2 frames, and then I want to win a match, and then I want to qualify for a venue, and then if I can, I want to win a tournament. So it was quite refreshing that he's
That's progression.
yeah, he's it was a fantastic person to talk to. So be interested to see how he gets on. And in the qualifiers, he didn't disgrace himself at all. I think he took Kowalski to 6-4 in the China qualifiers. So Anthony had been on a high, qualifying for the Crucible. So hopefully he'll get a few wins on the circuit. But yeah, we've got lots coming up for the new year. We've got lots of podcasts. We're going to try and do more sort of video, digital content, really, because that's the way it's going in terms of the media landscape. But obviously we've got a big sort of social media following as well. So we're going to obviously be focusing on that too. And like you say, the website, there'll be sort of interviews and information about tournaments and previews, etc. So that will still be there. So, got another busy but exciting season ahead.
And just in case anyone isn't signed up, where would they find these articles or the social media content?
Yeah, so it's totallysnookered.com. That's the website. We've got a Facebook page / community, which is just Totally Snookered, where we've got like 40,000 followers, and it's quite an engaged community as well. So everyone, gets involved in opinions, and we try and keep it all respectful and everything. Obviously, everyone has their favourites, so we try and keep it sort of friendly and community based. So yeah, if you're a fan of snooker, come over to that. We are on other sort of platforms like X and Blue Sky and Instagram. Not so much in on those platforms, but hopefully we're going to sort of expand. And we've also got the YouTube channel that we've recently started, so that's where you'll find all the interviews with players and vodcasts, etc. So if you kind people could go over and give us a like, we'd really appreciate that.
No, I've seen the videos. The first one was with Neil Folds, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. That was a brilliant chat. Yeah, I had a great time with Neil. He's such a, he's one of my favourite sort of pundits.
Yeah, he's good
commentators. He's a great person to chat to. I just love the way he is with the game. Obviously, he's been there himself, hasn't he? Former world number 3.
Yeah,
he's
Crucible semi-finalist.
Yeah. So now he's the other side of the sort of commentary glass, and he's fascinating to listen to.
Well, he'll be talking a lot during the season on comms, because there's a lot of snooker to look forward to. I'm kind of keen for this to get going now. I know we've got a little gap until Shanghai, but as you said earlier, once Shanghai gets going, the season really, really kicks off. And I'm excited to see how this unfolds. I say the same every season, but given how last season unfolded with all those different winners, I don't know if I want the same. I think I kind of do. I want unpredictability. I want drama. I want tension in my sport. And I think we'll get it, because I think there'll be a bit of especially with the number 1 ranking almost certain to change.
Yes.
Then it's symbolic, I think, and maybe it's the start of a new little era in snooker. I hope so.
I think looking at the projected sort of provisional rankings, there's potentially 4 players immediately in contention for that number 1 spot. Obviously, Judd could potentially keep the number 1 spot, but he would have to probably win the China Open and Wuhan Open to just get the points back he loses from Saudi. So he's got 500,000 coming off of that. Wu Yize is going to be in the frame. You've got Neil Robertson in the frame, John Higgins in the frame. But we are expecting, obviously, Zhao Xing Tong to become world number one at some point, because he still hasn't got 2 years worth of points on his thing, because he only come back properly last season. So I think he's got like 10,000 points coming off at the UK Championship, but then he's got nothing else coming off until next year's World Championship, when obviously he's got 500,000 coming off. So the world number one race will be interesting. As you say, I think you've called it symbolic. I think that's a really good way of describing it, because you could be world number one for a week and then it changes again. So it's not as, I don't want to say it's not as big, but it's very different to what it was, say, 15 years ago, where you were the number one for at least the whole season, because the rankings didn't change until the end of the term. So we could have sort of several world number ones over the next 12 months.
That'd be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's just, and even keeping track of things like that, it just puts that little bit more emphasis, that little bit more weight of importance on each tournament. It's, oh no, but if I win this one, then I will be world number one and my name will be in the history books, because there are so many great players who have never been world number one.
Yeah.
Sean Murphy, Ken Doherty, Kyron Wilson.
Yeah.
They were never world number one, and well, they're all Kyron Wilson. They were world champions, yeah. And it's.
I think it'll be interesting with again, it's sort of representative of the era we're in, because Ding Junhui was world number one, but only for like 3 weeks, sort of like 10 years ago, I think 2014 or 2015. So we have had a Chinese Asian world number one, but for not very long. Literally it was only for like 2 or 3 weeks, if I remember. So we could have a situation over the next couple of months, well, within the next couple of months, where the world numbers 1 and 2 are both Chinese. It could be Zhao and Wu, and that will be very symbolic of the way things are moving on in the snooker world. And there could be other Chinese players come the end of the year. You don't know. I mean, if Chang Bin-Yu was to go on some sort of big run, there could be other players in that mix. So yeah, we'll see how the established stars sort of try and battle, push back the tide.
Well, they're in for a fight, and I'm looking forward to it. A quick look ahead to what's coming up on the Snooker Hall podcast. Next week, my guest will be, well, another one of the most respected and recognised voices in snooker media. Nick Metcalf will join me on the Snooker Hall podcast to look at a few different aspects of snooker. And who else is coming on the Snooker Hall podcast? Very high-profile referee should be coming on at some point. Possibly the best referee in snooker right now. I won't say who, but and yeah, a couple of players looking at coming on. So some good guests coming up. Yeah, exciting times. But Michael, I always say this whenever you're on the show. The episodes are really popular, so I'm always happy to have you on, because you know what, I like your opinions, and I think you approach the game with, it's weird to say this, but a bit of logic. And whenever you've been on in the past, they've been popular episodes. I've got some nice comments. So thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it. And yeah, as of course, you're always welcome back on the Snooker Hall podcast.
Thank you very much, Dan. It's always a pleasure. And to all the snooker fans out there, hope you have a fantastic snooker season. Should be another thrilling one.
I think it will be. Let's see how it goes. Thanks, Mike.